the one thing that keeps you away from finding your purpose, and the one thing that keeps you away from living it. That's what I want to talk to you about today. But before we get started, I want to share my story with you so that on one hand, you get to know me a little bit better. And on the other hand, you might resonate with those things because the way my life went is what brought me here to become an expert on purpose and to actually living purpose. So my name is May Wengel. I was born in Ecuador to a German father and a Chinese Ecuadorian mother. My first 7 years I spent in Ecuador, so I spoke Spanish there. I started learning German already, and then when I was 7, we moved to Germany because my dad wanted all of us to learn that language as well and to get to know the culture. By the time I was 12, we moved to Nicaragua. And when I was, I think, 16 and a half, I went to Costa Rica for 1 year to get the German high school degree there because that school was a little bit more advanced than the one in Nicaragua back then. And I got back to Nicaragua just to stay a couple months before I went to move to Germany when I turned 18, where I learned to be a gardener. Then I learned to be a travel agent. Then I worked in a call center for travel agencies. Then I worked in the back office of a hostel. And then I started working in a corporate world in a huge company, telecommunications company, as a personal assistant because they were searching for people that spoke Spanish. By that time, I got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm always looking for something that's fun, that I like to do, that I enjoy doing. But somehow, again, I ended up in a job that after a year was actually pretty boring. It had gotten so normal and I had gotten so used to it. And it was just not fulfilling. And I stood there, having spent 10 years in Germany, asking myself, where have all my dreams gone? Where have the things gone that where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do? I hadn't done anything. And why was I stuck in a job that wasn't fulfilling? So what I did there was, in that moment, I need to do something different. So I started to go on a spiritual path because I figured that if I can't find it by, testing different jobs by myself, that I needed to find it on a spiritual path. So I started learning shamanism, different kinds of energy work. I loved it because my first shamanic teacher gave me such a good base, and he actually went on participating in different teachings with me because for his time back then, it was very advanced. He said, your path is a spiritual path, but don't let it be, like put into just one little thing. And it's just not one direction. It's going to have different kinds of directions. And it felt good for me at that point because being the multicultural person that I am, because I grew up in different cultures and having the background of different cultures, it felt right that for me, it was sort of like being a bridge builder, like being in different things. So it felt good to do that, right? But still, it was, I don't know, something was still missing a little bit. And so what I did at that point, I had the opportunity to become the assistant to a CEO, which is amazingly huge. And in my case, I didn't even have to work so much for it. It was just, it sort of like fell into my lap. And I was like, okay, why not do it, right? I mean, it's a better position. So you just do it, right? So I did that. And I think it was sort of like after 2 years is where I started to notice that I had fallen into a deep depression, that I would come home crying. I would really not feel good about myself, about the world, about my job, about everything. It was really a full-on blown depression. But I figured I can do this by myself. At that point, I was learning shiatsu massage, because always the energy work, working with my hands was important to me. So I started learning shiatsu massage, and the teachers that I had in there, also the Chinese doctor that was supporting that class with, the Chinese medicine part, they supported me, gave me some herbs, and talked to me a lot about how to, get over that depression. And then I think it was a year after that, my boss had to leave the company. So I had to stay there and wait for the next boss to come. And so I got the opportunity to change my job inside of the company. And for other people, it would mean that I was, how do you say, put on a lower job, because I wasn't the PA to a CEO anymore. I was going to be the assistant of a VP at that point, so it was lower. But for me, it meant just getting out of the energy where I was, because if I felt like I had so much pressure there being the assistant of the CEO, and because my boss left, I felt like, okay, now I can do it, like I don't have, because I felt so like I had to keep his back, like help him all the time, help the team and everything. But because he was gone, it gave me the freedom to just say, I'm leaving. I'm going to go and try something else. Sorry, I changed to a different section within the company. And the interesting thing was that after a couple of months, I was finding myself again in a similar situation as before, coming home, crying, being overwhelmed by so many private things. I was, feeling like it wasn't giving me anything. I felt anger a lot of the times, and I just felt tired of everything. And at that point, I was still trying to find a solution on a spiritual path. I was asking my spirit guides, I was asking the teachers that I had at that time, and it would always come back with the answers, everything's fine, just keep on going, just keep on going. But for me, it didn't feel right. So what I realized at that point was that the problem was not my spirituality. The problem was my cognitive thinking, for me, it was like my 3D thinking, because somehow I had a view of the world that was hurting me, that was actually making me feel bad. And so I had to find out what the problem was, right? So I figured I have to try normal therapy. And I really did that at that point. I started a normal, like the normal therapy sessions with a therapist. And I'm grateful that I did, because with that, I really learned what was wrong with my thinking, because there was really something wrong with my thinking. Well, I don't like using the word wrong, but we'll get to that later. But in that moment, it felt like there was something wrong with my thinking of the world, so I have to change it. And it was great because that therapist that I had back then really taught me to look at things. And I had two huge learnings and one little learning, but two huge learnings. One was that she finally described my form of depression that I had. And it was a form of depression that comes because you don't have meaning in your life. So that was a huge, okay, I need to find meaning in my life. So how do I do that? And further along in the sessions that I had with her, trying to figure out those meaning things for me, we came to a point where we found out that actually the reason why I didn't find meaning in my life was because I truly didn't know myself. I was only reacting to the people around me and what I thought everybody else wanted me to be. I was only reacting to what people were doing, telling me to do what I thought they wanted me to do. And I had, up until that point, I had never truly, deeply asked myself what I wanted without having the how do you say, the reasoning of other people. But I still had in my head all those paradigms, all those thought patterns that I needed to do that because of that person, or I needed to do that because people tell you to do this, or you're supposed to do this and that, right? And the interesting thing is that while I was having those therapy sessions, at the same time, the Hawaiian philosophy came into my life. And that was amazing for me. And the Hawaiian philosophy, actually, for the first time, I had some tools in my hand that gave me self-empowerment, that actually put me in my power and showed me how the outside world was created by my thoughts, and how I could, if I changed my thoughts, how I could change everything around me. And so that's when my journey started, with the support of the Hawaiian philosophy, of the shaman. Like all my spirit, everything that I had learned on my spiritual path were helping me to get on that journey, to find out who I am, what I wanted to do. And with that, I started to really make changes in my life. And it was amazing how it all changed. It all entangled within itself. I finally managed to go to Hawaii and do more deeper learnings over there, because back then I was learning to do Hawaiian massage, which is lomi lomi. And yes, I do lomi lomi massage. But I don't do it on a regular basis anymore. But that's the thing. On my second trip to Hawaii, it went even more deeper. And I feel like that second time gave me the power. It self-empowered me to sit on the throne of my own life. And with that, I was finally able, and we're talking about time, right? And with that, I was finally able to admit to myself what I truly wanted. And one of the things of that was that I wanted to travel. I wanted to travel again. It's something that was put into my veins, I call it, because I mean, I come from traveling people. My Chinese ancestors traveled to Ecuador at some point. My parents were travelers themselves, and then my dad's side, there's also traveling in the ancestry as well. So it felt like that was something I needed to follow, because I feel like I have been too static. By that time, I had been in Germany almost 20 years in one spot, one city. Like I had moved within the city a couple of times, but I had been in the same city for 20 years. That's the longest I've been in one place in my whole life. But I was able to admit that, to finally admit to myself, okay, this is actually what I want, where I want to go. And it took me another year to actually, put it all so in motion that by November 2017, I had given up my apartment in Munich and set out to travel. And I'm not saying I'm one of those huge travelers. I'm not the one that says I need to do 50 countries in a year. I prefer slow traveling, just do 2 countries a year, and then really dive into the energy of the place. And this is just something that I like to do right now. I don't know how long or when and whatever. So that was one of the things that I felt the need to do, that was, that's where I needed to go. And I started doing it. And it's been so amazing. I don't have, like, by now we're 3 years after. I'm grateful for the beautiful experiences that have been manifested on my path, because it's part of the manifestation that we do ourselves. And like right now, me being here in Panama is something that I manifested somehow. No, not somehow, I know how. But I'm grateful to be able to be here in this moment, in a place where I feel so blessed, so grateful for all the things that are happening, all the transformation that is happening, that has happened and is still happening and ongoing, because that's what, that's part of it also, to keep on transforming and to be able to serve you guys and help you in telling my story and showing you how to do it, because that's how I created it for myself. And so I'm working on that and doing all that. And my first thing that I wanted to do when I started off this journey, my goal was, and my purpose was, to live a life that was like a never-ending vacation, because I don't want my job to feel like a job. And I have been living that for the past 3 years. My life has been like a huge vacation. When I do this right now, recording this video for you guys, it doesn't feel like a job. It feels, I'm fulfilled with it. I'm loving it. I'm grateful that I'm allowed to share my story, so that other people can get something out of it and win for themselves as well. And if you stay tuned, we're gonna dive a little bit more deeper in the whole purpose journey through all the questions that were answered in the questionnaire as well. But now I want to get to you to that point where I want to tell you the two questions that I asked in the beginning: the reason why you're not finding your purpose, and the reason why you're not living it, because there's two huge reasons for that. And one you might have already heard out of the story that I just told you, because it's truly, and this is something that I've noticed with all my clients, it's about getting to know yourself. And I mean truly getting to know yourself. And I mean 100% being honest with yourself. And it's about accepting yourself. The beautiful things, the ugly things, everything is just wonderful. And everything is right at the right moment. Right now you're listening to this, so you're right here listening to this because it's the right moment. Because something in this story is going to, show you something. And even though even if you already know your purpose, this question is still going to help you, because, or even if you say, hey, May, you know what? I already know myself. And I'm going to say, yeah, you probably do that. But if you're part of the group that says, I don't know how to get there, I don't know how to live my purpose, then I'm going to tell you there's little points where you're not honest with yourself because something's blocking you. Something's keeping you away. Some fears are keeping you away. And if you say, yeah, but I know those fears. And I'm like, yeah, it's good that you know them, but why haven't you overcome them? And the thing is, to find that, I believe every one of us has the power. If we truly live our own truths, if we truly know ourselves, then there is no fear. Then there is no blocks, because we know where we want to go and we focus on that and we just do it. And we all have creative powers, and all of us can create a purposeful life and a life with meaning. But it starts at that point that you're 100% honest with yourself and that you do what comes out of you, that wants to be created through you. Which brings us to the second point. For those of you who say, I already know my purpose, but how do I get there? The thing is that, and this thing also goes into the first question, because it's all about how we define things. When I made the survey at the beginning, I had not all of the people that participated in my purpose survey had that, because I figured it's a little bit a wide question. But I asked a question on how do you define purpose? What is purpose for you? And a lot of people answered that it was their destiny, was something huge that they have to follow. And one of the things that I realized in that matter was that it's such a huge thing that just because of that, you feel like, I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm not going to be able to transform that. Or to actually live that. Like, how am I supposed to do that? And I'm telling you this because that's one of the things that happened to me. On my spiritual path, I had the spirit world telling me that I was meant for something big, to create, to be a leader, to be a teacher. But back then, I didn't have the strength, I didn't have the power, I didn't have the self-confidence to really sit there and say, yeah, I can be a teacher. I am a teacher. I am here to teach people. I am here to give you this. But back then I wasn't. It was such a huge thing. It was like, oh my God, this is so huge. I don't want to have the burden. It felt like a burden because it was so big. It felt like something so huge that I couldn't do it. Like I didn't feel the self-worth to do it. I didn't feel empowered to do it. So for me, I just ignored it. And you might already be there like, yeah, I see it and I want to be it. But there's something huge standing in your way. And a lot of the times that huge thing is because we make that destiny, we make that purpose so huge. So the idea is to not make it huge, make it a little bit smaller. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more now because I want to give you two little exercises. even if you are, no matter which one, if you're the one looking for a purpose or if you're one wanting to live your purpose, I think if you, for both types of people, it's important to make this practice. So I'm going to give you 2 homeworks until you get the next video. So one is, take as often as possible a moment during the day to just check in with yourself. No judgment, no nothing, just check in. How am I feeling right now? How is this situation making me feel? Just that. Nothing else, no judgment, just check in with yourself. How am I feeling right now? And the second practice I want to give you is, if you have this huge goal of finding your purpose, of living your purpose, break it down to smaller one. If you're one of those that say, yeah, but I don't know my purpose yet, why don't you for now make your purpose to find your purpose? You know what I mean? So if your goal is right now, or your purpose right now is to find out what your purpose is, if that also feels huge, break it down, make it smaller. What is the one thing you can do today to live that purpose? Which means, if you want to have a solution to your purpose, what could you do to find out more to yourself? So that will mean probably to check in a little bit more often with yourself, to find out more about yourself. If you already have your purpose, break it down, make it smaller. You know, like, because a lot of the times we have this huge purpose in our mind and we don't see how we can actually live it, because of course it will mean that you would probably have to change jobs, completely let go of some people, and try to integrate it in a small way. Maybe surround yourself by people who are already living their purpose, that purpose that you are wanting to live. Like, for example, if you want to be a painter, start going out to vernissage, or go connect with other painters, or paint a picture as often as you can. Maybe not on a daily basis, but maybe every second day, or at least 2 or 3 times a week. If your purpose is to become a musician, find more musicians, or start making music yourself and do it yourself. And just, like, what I'm trying to say is, what I'm trying to say is, make that your own. Create that purpose on a daily basis for yourself. Make it smaller. Don't see it as a huge thing that has to be huge. You can have it as a goal, that huge thing back there, but ask yourself every day, how can you integrate that on a daily or maybe weekly basis right now into your life, and make little steps, because those little steps are going to help you. And the more often you check in with yourself, you're going to be able to see when there's a block, when there's a thought pattern, a paradigm that's not working, or actually starting. And it's going to give you practice to start to be more and more honest with yourself, and actually saying, okay, I feel like this. Why am I angry? We're going to go deeper into those things further down the series. But for now, just take that. Be more mindful with yourself. Take moments to check in with yourself, and see your huge goal and try to make it a little bit smaller so that it's tangible for every day. That's so nice. And yeah, I hope you liked it. Please, if you can, reply to the email you received this video with. I'd really love to know what was the biggest takeaway for you from this audio today. And of course, I'd love to hear how you are integrating the small goals, like what kind of smaller purposes you're putting in there. We're going to go deeper into the purpose, the daily purpose question, I think, in the next video. And yeah, I'm so grateful that you tuned in today. And I'm looking forward to tell you a little bit more about a couple of things that happened on my path, a couple of transformations that happened to me with Oktoberfest. But I'll tell you more in the other videos. So I'm looking forward to listening to you more. I'm grateful that you listened today. And I'm looking forward to your emails to see what your biggest takeaways are from this video. Thank you so much for tuning in, and see you in the next video.